everyone. So in this lecture we'll be discussing about all the HTML input types. We have discussed a lot of input types such as button, checkbox, and different things. And in this we'll be studying in detail all these input types. There are a lot of input types, so we'll be discussing each and every input type or in the HTML form. So let us say input type, that is text. So what will happen? Input type, that is text, and defines a single line text input field. We have already discussed this is how it looks. Now if we want a password field, so what we need to do, we and it defines a password field. So if I type a password like this, so these dot comes up like this, and if I type a username like this, so username is visible to me. So I want that password shouldn't be visible to me. So for what I need to do, I need to write here input type is equal to password. So password will not be visible to me. So in here, like in username, I am writing Harsh. So what will happen? Because the input type is text, whereas in password, the password will not be visible to me. The characters in a password field are masked. They are shown as circles or asterisk. Now input type submit button, we have already discussed this, how a submit button works, how we have to press it. So we just have to put input type is equal to submit, and value we have to put submit. So this is how it works. Now if I want input type reset, so it defines that reset button will reset all the form values to their default values. Like for example, here is John and Doe. If I reset it, so this is John and Doe, that is already written over here. If I write Harsh and last name, if I write Gupta, so these are all the details. But if I reset it, so it will reset to John and Doe, which are its default value, that it should be written over here, right? Now let us discuss about input type radio. So input type radio defines a radio button. So we have discussed this HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and radio button only selects one. So we have to write input type is equal to radio, and we have to mention its ID and name and its value. And we have to label for it also, that label for this, so it could be linked to that. So if I press here, so radio box will be selected. If I don't use label, then what will happen? If I don't click on HTML, it won't be selected. I will have to click here in these dots like this. So now there's also input type checkbox. We have already discussed this. Input type checkbox, we could select like multiple things. What we have to do, we just have to write input type is equal to checkbox. Now let us talk about input type button. So input type button will so input type is equal to button. On click, what action is to be performed? That is alert hello world. So value is click me. So if I, so it will generate an alert. Alert is generated such that a pop-up appears. So hello world will, it will say. Now it is input type color. So if I say it is used for input field that should contain a color, depending on the browser support or color picker, it can help. Select your favorite color. So color picker is available. So what I need to do, I just need to write input type. So which kind of color in RGB and the HSL, HEX, this all we have discussed in HTML colors. So if I want to pick any particular color, so I could pick any particular color. So this is the color code of this, as we have discussed in HTML colors. We have understood this. Now there is input type date. If I want to enter date somewhere, so I'll write input type is equal to date. So label for birthday, and birthday is when, input type is date, ID is birthday, and name is also birthday. So if I want to select any date, so such a thing will appear and I could select my date. I could select the year from here first, then which year is that, and I could scroll down, and I could also select the month, and I could also select the date. So this is how I could select the date. Could also use minimum and maximum attributes to add restrictions. For example, if you want to create a voter ID for someone, so you could set it that minimum age should be 18. So a person less than 18 cannot apply for that or something like that, or maximum date could also be set. So what we need to do, we have to write input type is equal to date, ID is equal to date max, name is also date max. We are labeling for date max. So now enter a date before 1 January 1980. So maximum will be 31st December and 1979. So what will happen if I have to enter a date before 1 January? So I can't any enter any date after 1 January 1980. I just have to, I can just only enter a date before it. So for this, I have to write the max date. So I'll write max is equal to this date, and it will be in format year, month, and date. So it is YY. The you should be clear with this. It should be YYY MM, and then it should be date. So this is in this format you have to write in minimum or maximum column. Now let us talk about input type date time local. So the input type date time local specifies a date and time input field with no time zone. Depending on browser support, a date picker can show up in the input field like birthday, time and date. So I could select the date also, and I could select the time also. What is the date and what was the time? So I could date using the type date time local. I could select both date and both time. I just have to mention here input type is equal to date time local, and everything else will be same. Now for example, if I have to take an input email, so what I have to do, I just have to write input type, that is email. So what will happen, I could enter email. Now let us talk about input type image. If you have to take an image, so you could set all the alternate text to submit first name, last name, etc, etc. The input image sends x and y coordinates of the click that activate the button. So you could also, what, here you could submit the image also, so it will submit the coordinates where you clicked. Now talking about input type file. So the input type is equal to file defines a selected field and a browse button for file uploads. So what happens is that in a form you could label for my file, select a file, input type file, ID would be my file, name would be my file. So this is how you could input a file also. You have seen somewhere that you have to choose a file, you have such a feature. So you could choose a file, how you have to choose a file. So this is how you could choose a file. You could label for my file, select a file, input type is equal to file, ID is my file, and name is also my file, and you could then submit it then. So what the main thing is, input type is equal to file. So using this you could upload a file also. Now let us see input type hidden. So input type is equal to hidden defines a hidden input value not visible to a user. A hidden field lets developer include data that cannot be seen or modified by users when a form is submitted. A hidden field often stores what database record that needs to be updated when the form is submitted. While the value is not displayed to the user in the page's content, it is visible and can be edited using any browser's developer tools or view source functionality. Do not use hidden inputs as a form of security, right? So don't use it as a security. It could be seen if you, double click on it and on any website and inspect it. So you could read all the code. Now for inputting any month, you could use input type month. For inputting any number, you could write input type number, and you could mention all the ID and name and quantity. You could also select the minimum and maximum values. For example, if you have to input a number, so quantity between 1 and 5. So what I can do, I could input any number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, nothing more than 5, nothing less than 1. So what I have to do, I have to write input type is equal to number, and I could also select minimum should be 1 and maximum could be 5. So this is how what I have to edit in my input section, and rest of the text will be same. So now there are some restrictions also. You could just pause it and read it. It is in very simple English. So this is how it works. Now coming to input type range. So range basically defines for entering a number whose exact value is not important, like a slider control. Default range is 0 to 100. However, you can set restrictions also, that minimum should be 0, maximum should be 50, or step wise you could also use that volume between 0 and 50. Now if you submit like this, so volume was 42. This is how you could also create. Now input type search. The input type search is used to find search fields. A search field behaves like a regular text field, but it comes like you are searching something like on Google. Now input type tel is used, tel is used for input fields that should contain a telephone number. For example, if you have to enter your telephone number somewhere. So what you need to do, you just need to write tel and enter a phone number. So this is how you could enter a phone number. Like the format will be this 123 and with a slash something like this with a hyphen, and you could place like this, and whatever the great text you see beforehand over here. So what will happen, a placeholder is there. Placeholder is basically all the great text you see over here with a default value. So placeholder basically tells you that this type of data you have to enter. For phone number you have to enter like phone number, a default phone number will be there, which is you don't have to erase it or something. When you click cursor on it, it will disappear on its own and it will take your data. So placeholder works like this. So placeholder is also an attribute which you could use in forms or any other thing. You can set a default value. You could also select time using input type is equal to time, and you could also select input type is equal to URL. So for that you could hide your, now you could add your homepage URL. So all the www dot sites, all the sites you could mention it over here, submit it over here. You could also select a week. So these are all the just you have to do input type is equal to week. So these are all the HTML input types which you could use to make user fill your form. So this is all, and I hope you would have understood it.